Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear legend. Happy birthday to you. Yeah, y'all better stop playing with my...
December. A father throws his oldest son a birthday party, posts on Facebook telling the world to wish him a happy birthday, talks about giving his boys the world. Less than a month later, that same father is dead, shot in the head while he was sleeping. And the person they arrested? That same 15-year-old birthday boy. Make it make sense. You're watching the exposed crime. We tell the stories that need to be told. Domestic violence, toxic relationships, and the lives lost behind closed doors. No sugarcoating, no excuses, just the truth. If you're new here, subscribe and join us as we shed light on these stories. Jonathan Brown was 34 years old when he died, a father to multiple children, a man who'd made mistakes, done his time, and came back home to Glasgow Village in St. Louis County trying to get it right. And listen, when I say he came back focused, I mean focused. Less than a year before his death, Jonathan walked out of prison with a mission. He wasn't talking about the streets. He was talking about his sons, about being present, about building something that would last beyond him. A father's last act was love. Weeks later, his son would shoot him in the head. One of Jonathan's close friends put it like this: Brody came home and stayed focused this time, and all he talked about was trying to build a relationship with his sons. We had a fight in jail and got back cool. And when we came home, we saw each other on a late night on a one-way street. And both of us hopped out of our cars and said, "What's up?" and talked. That's how we know we ain't have no hatred in our hearts for each other on Bull. We used to be in the hole talking about the Bible and how we were going to change our lives in short. John Brown was a good dude, man. Read that again. They used to be in the hole talking about the Bible, talking about change. That's who Jonathan was when he came home. A man focused on transformation, on being better, on doing right by his children. People who knew him said he was always speaking highly of his boys, always making sure they knew he loved them, always talking about generational wealth, about setting them up for something better than what he had. Now, being a good father doesn't mean you're perfect. Jonathan had his struggles. He'd been locked up. He'd made choices that took him away from his kids. But the man who came home, he was trying, really trying. Friends said all he talked about was his sons. Building relationships that had been broken by his absence, making up for lost time, creating something that would outlast him. That's the thing about coming home from prison. You can't just pick up where you left off. Your kids have grown. They've developed their own feelings about where you've been and why you weren't around. They've got questions, resentment maybe, hurt that doesn't just disappear because you walk back through the door with good intentions. Rebuilding takes time. It takes patience. It takes communication that goes both ways. But Jonathan was committed. He wasn't just talking. He was showing up. And nowhere was that more obvious than in December, when his oldest son turned 15. Jonathan went all out. We're not talking about a small gathering or a cake at the house. He threw his son a proper birthday celebration. The kind that gets posted online. The kind that shows you're proud. The kind that says, "This is my boy, and I want the world to know." He even took to Facebook with a birthday message. This is what Jonathan Brown posted, word for word. "Y'all wish my son a happy meth birthday. Happy birthday, son. You big 15 now. Daddy loves you, man. You need to grow up and stop being shy. Love you." Doing all that crazy talking like I don't do none for my boy. I give the world to all my Lou boys. Read that again. I give the world to all my Lou boys. There's love in that post, Pride, too. A father celebrating his son turning 15, telling the world about it, making sure everyone knew he showed up. But there's also something else sitting right there in those words, something that makes you pause. Doing all that crazy talking like I don't do none for my boy. That line, that defensive edge. Jonathan felt he had something to prove. Someone was talking. Someone was questioning whether he was doing enough for his kids. Maybe it was family members. Maybe it was people in the community who remembered his past, who knew he'd been locked up, who wondered if he was really as present as he claimed to be. Or maybe, and this is the harder question, maybe it was coming from closer to home. Maybe his son had said something. Maybe there were conversations happening that hinted at resentment, at feeling like the birthday party and the Facebook post weren't enough to make up for the time that was lost. We don't know. But that line sits there, doesn't it? A father defending himself in the same breath he's celebrating his child. You need to grow up and stop being shy. Even that feels loaded. Is he talking to his son? Telling a 15-year-old to grow up on his birthday? Or is he frustrated about something? Is there tension between them that's being masked by this public display of love? The birthday party happened. Videos circulated online afterward. Some people who watched that footage later said they could see tension between father and son. Body language that felt off. Moments that didn't quite match the celebratory tone. Others saw a dad being generous and attentive, throwing his son the kind of party every kid deserves, making memories, showing love in the way he knew how. Depends on who you ask. Depends on what you're looking for. But here's what we know for sure. Jonathan Brown celebrated his oldest son's 15th birthday in December. He posted about it proudly. He showed up for his kid in a way that mattered to him. He put it out there for the world to see. I give the world to all my Lou boys. And less than a month later, on January 7th, Jonathan Brown would be found dead in his home, shot in the head while he was sleeping. And the person they arrested? That same 15-year-old birthday boy. How do you get from a December birthday party to a January homicide? From, I give the world to all my Lou boys, to a teenager in custody facing murder charges. How does a father's love turn into this? That's the question that haunts this entire case. And the answer, if there even is one, starts with what happened inside that house when the camera stopped rolling and the party was over. January. The new year comes in, and for most people in Glasgow Village, it's just another week. Kids back to school, adults back to work, life moving forward. But inside the Brown household on Glengarry Road, something happened. We don't have all the details. The investigation is still ongoing, and because a juvenile is involved, a lot of information is being kept quiet. But according to a Facebook post that went viral after Jonathan's death, there was an argument. Father and son got into it. Here's what that post said, word for word. Well, if you want to know the backstory, is my homie bro John. John and his son got into it and had an argument. And while he was sleeping, his son shot him and left and drove his car and had his things got booked and let go. He was only 15 years old. An argument between Jonathan and his 15-year-old son. The details of what they argued about? That hasn't been made public. Was it about school? About rules in the house? About respect? About something that had been building up for a while? We don't know. What we do know is what allegedly happened next. January 7th, the 2800 block of Glengarry Road. After the argument, Jonathan Brown went to sleep. Or maybe he was just resting. Either way, he was in his home, lying down, vulnerable, not expecting what was about to happen. According to that same Facebook post, his 15-year-old son shot him in the head while he was sleeping. Let me say that again. While he was sleeping. There's something about that detail that makes this whole thing even harder to process. You argue with your parents, tensions are high, emotions are running. But then to wait until they're asleep? To approach them when they can't see you coming, can't defend themselves, can't even talk to you? That's not the heat of the moment. That's a decision made in the silence. That's walking to wherever that gun was kept, picking it up, walking to where your father is lying down, and pulling the trigger. The shot rang out inside the home. Jonathan Brown, the man who'd just come home from prison talking about his sons, the man who threw a birthday party weeks earlier, the man trying to build generational wealth. He was hit. At least one gunshot wound to the head, the police would later report. And then, according to that viral post, the 15-year-old left, drove Jonathan's car, took his things, just left. His father was dead or dying in that house, and he drove away. At 4:51 in the afternoon, St. Louis County Police got a call. Glasgow Village neighborhood. Someone needed to check on a situation at a home on Glengarry Road. The call came in as a suspicious death. Officers arrived at the scene. They entered the home and found Jonathan Brown. He was suffering from at least one gunshot wound to the head. Paramedics checked for signs of life. There were none. Jonathan Brown was pronounced dead right there in his own home. The same home where he'd been trying to rebuild his life, reconnect with his sons, be the father he wanted to be. He was 34 years old. The St. Louis County Police Bureau of Crimes Against Persons immediately opened a homicide investigation. Detectives started processing the scene, looking for evidence, trying to piece together what happened. Shell casings, blood spatter patterns, anything that could tell them who did this and why. But here's the thing about domestic homicides. Sometimes the answers are right there in the house. Sometimes the people you need to talk to are family members. Sometimes the weapon is still nearby. Sometimes the truth comes out faster than you'd expect. Detectives started interviewing people. Neighbors, family members, friends, anyone who might know what happened in that house. Anyone who might have heard the gunshot. Anyone who might have seen someone leaving. The case started coming together. Tips came in, information flowed. And within days, investigators had zeroed in on a suspect, a 15-year-old boy. The St. Louis County Police didn't release his name. Couldn't release his name. He's a juvenile. The law protects his identity even when the charges are this serious. But people in the community? They were already talking. Social media was already buzzing. Local news pages started reporting what their sources were telling them. The teen was Jonathan Brown's son. The same son from the birthday party, the same son from that Facebook post, the same boy Jonathan said he would give the world to. Some posts described Jonathan as a loving father to all of his children and noted the juvenile may be related. The police wouldn't confirm or deny the relationship. They couldn't. But the streets were talking. And in a community like this, word spreads fast. January 12th. 5 days after Jonathan Brown was found dead, police took the 15-year-old into custody. The charges: second-degree murder, armed criminal action. Let that sit for a second. A 15-year-old child charged with murdering his own father. Charged with using a gun to do it. The arrest happened quietly. No dramatic chase, no standoff. Just a juvenile being taken into custody and remanded to the St. Louis County Family Court. That's where his case would be handled now. Not in regular criminal court. Family court, because he's a minor. But the weight of those charges? Murder in the second degree isn't a small thing. It means prosecutors believe he intentionally killed Jonathan Brown, even if it wasn't premeditated days or weeks in advance. It means they believe he knew what he was doing when he pulled that trigger. Armed criminal action means he used a gun, used a deadly weapon to take his father's life. The investigation remained active. Detectives were still gathering evidence, still talking to witnesses, still building their case. The St. Louis County Police urged anyone with information to contact Crime Stoppers. They wanted to know everything that happened in that house, everything that led up to that moment. Glasgow Village is a small neighborhood, tight-knit, the kind of place where people know each other, look out for each other. And now they're dealing with this. A father was killed. A son was arrested. A family completely shattered. The community was left reeling, trying to make sense of something that doesn't make sense. But some questions don't have easy answers. Some questions might never be fully answered. What made a 15-year-old boy shoot his father in the head? What was said in that argument that afternoon? Had there been other arguments before this one? Was this the first time things got physical? Or had there been warning signs that people missed? Jonathan's friend had talked about how focused he was on building relationships with his sons. But relationship building is hard, especially when you've been gone. Especially when you're trying to make up for lost time. Especially when you're dealing with a teenager who might have his own feelings about where you've been and why you weren't around. None of that justifies what happened. Nothing justifies taking someone's life, especially your own father's life, while he's sleeping. But it's the reality of trying to understand how we got here. How did we get from a December birthday party to a January homicide? From, I give the world to all my Lou boys, to a 15-year-old in custody facing murder charges? This is where we step back and look at what this case really represents. Jonathan Brown is gone. A man who'd made mistakes, but was trying to get it right. A man who came home from prison with a plan, who talked about the Bible and changed with his friends. Who threw his son a birthday party and posted about giving his boys the world. And now he's a statistic. Another homicide in St. Louis County. Another victim of gun violence. Another name on a growing list. But it's more than that. This wasn't a stranger. Wasn't a robbery gone wrong. Wasn't gang violence or street beef. This was family. This was a father shot in his own home, allegedly by his own child, while he was sleeping. Domestic violence doesn't always look the way people think it does. When we hear those words, we often picture intimate partners, husbands and wives, boyfriends and girlfriends. But violence inside the home can take many forms. Parent and child. Sibling and sibling. Arguments that escalate beyond what anyone could imagine. The people who love Jonathan Brown are left with memories. The birthday party videos. The Facebook posts. The conversations about change and building something better. They're left wondering what could have been done differently. What signs were missed. What conversations didn't happen that should have. His other children? They lost their father. They lost him to violence inside their own family. They have to live with knowing how he died and who allegedly did it. That's trauma that doesn't just go away. That's the pain that reshapes everything. The 15-year-old who stands accused, his life is forever altered too. Whether he's convicted or not, whether he serves time in a juvenile facility or not, he'll carry this for the rest of his life. He'll be the boy who allegedly killed his father. That's his story now. That's what people will know him for. This case forces us to ask uncomfortable questions about family dynamics. About what happens when parents come home from incarceration. About teenage anger and conflict resolution. About access to guns in homes with children. About how we support families in crisis before it's too late. The answers aren't simple. They never are. What we're left with is another family destroyed, another community grieving, another reminder that violence doesn't discriminate based on where it happens or who's involved. It just destroys. And it leaves everyone picking up pieces that can never quite fit back together. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence in any form, parent to child, child to parent, between partners, between siblings, please reach out for help. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is available 24/7 at 1-800-799-7223. There are resources. There are people who can help before it's too late. This is The Exposed Crime, bringing you the stories that need to be told, the ones that hurt to hear but matter to understand. If this case touched you, if it made you think, if it reminded you of someone in your own life who needs help, hit that subscribe button, share this video, start the conversation because silence protects no one. And these stories, they matter. Rest in peace, Jonathan Brown. Gone too soon, taken too violently.